We have some breaking news here on CBS Sports HQ. That's Brandon Baylor. I'm Tommy Tran. Braves fans, baseball fans, sad today to hear the passing of one-time home run king Hank Aaron, who's died at the age of 86.
Yeah, shocking one here. This is a guy that was a name that we heard a lot over the years, not necessarily so much so for what he did before April 8th, 1974. I want to show you guys here. This was the moment he jumped on the scene, breaking the long-standing record for Babe Ruth. We're talking home runs, 715. That was the one that elevated him into legendary status there. Before that, of course, in his fourth season in the league, he had 23 long ones. He hit 44 home runs, 132 RBIs, at least 25 home runs in every season from the early 1950s to 1973. I mentioned a long time in the league, of course, then the Milwaukee Braves, the Brewers, a legend when you're talking southern cities, in Atlanta as well. First time all time in RBIs and second in home runs. Let's bring in our Jim Bowden now, who actually confirmed this news with Hank Aaron passing at 86. Your reaction here, Jim?
Legend is fitting. Icon, Hall of Famer. I mean, I think that's how we start, by explaining Hank Aaron, a man of dignity and class who had to deal with a lot of racism during his career. And he did it standing up, looking people in the eye and dealing with it. The longevity of his career is one that very few will ever be able to meet. This is a player that appeared in 21 straight All-Star games. He finished top 3 in MVP voting 7 different times. Hit 40 homers 7 different times. Led the league in homers and RBIs 4 different times. We're talking about the only player in baseball history to hit 700 homers and have 300 hits. How about having more singles than Wade Boggs or more stolen bases than Pee Wee Reese? That was him. 19 straight years we watched him slug over 518. 19 straight years we saw him hit between 24 and 47 home runs. But it's the way he carried himself. It was his class, his dignity, his perseverance, the longevity of his career that we all sit there and honor today. We've lost one of the great ones. I'll always consider him the home run king. He did it without PEDs, without cheating. I'll never forget the home run you just showed off of Al Downing that was caught in the bullpen by Tom House. It was an incredible, incredible moment in baseball history. And for a lot of us, it was a huge part of our childhood, that one particular home run. Hank Aaron, Mr. Brave, even though he started his career in Milwaukee and was able to end it in Milwaukee as well. But he'll certainly be missed.
Jim, I just want to go back to that day in 1974, breaking the record there. Of course, I wasn't around to see that. My dad, family members in the South and the Carolinas, this was a moment that they had a chance to watch. What do you remember about those stories of hearing the 715 about Hank Aaron there?
Yeah, I mean, look, I remember watching it. I was in my basement in Massachusetts as a little kid in my feet pajamas. But I'll never forget the moment. It was a really big deal in our house, the anticipation of breaking Babe Ruth's record, a record that no one thought would ever be broken. And to watch him, it was amazing. But, the story about Hank Aaron is he wasn't just a home run hitter, right? I mean, he was the complete player. He was a good defender. He could run, he had power, he had speed, he had a good glove. I remember talking to him several years ago, and all he wanted to do was talk about how much fun he had, his chances to play with Willie Mays and Ernie Banks and some of these great players. But this was a stand-up guy, and I don't think a lot of people understand what he had to go through as a young player. He really had to deal with a lot of difficult racisms, and he handled it all the time with class and dignity. And when he came to the ballpark, he was there every day to count on. The longevity of this career, Cal Ripken may have broken the record for most games consecutively ever played, but Hank Aaron's performance over those particular 19 straight years where he dominated this sport and went to 21 straight All-Star games, I'm not sure that'll ever be surpassed by any player.
You look at the numbers, still standing along some of the best in Major League Baseball. When we look at what he's done as a body, as a player, off the field, his personality, you mentioned the conversations you just had with him over time. What was he like in those moments?
Always very calculated, always very smart, very engaging, very classy. He's the kind of guy that always took time for everybody. If you met him at the ballpark or you saw him up in the press box, and he would take the time and chat with you. He was never one of these superstar legends or icons that didn't have time. He would sit there and spend time. He loved talking about baseball, no doubt about it, all the time, and was always around the park, which was also something that not every player does when they're done their career. But classy, quiet, dignity is the word that keeps sticking out to me every time I think of this legend icon.
You mentioned the 21 All-Star appearances there, the world champion Hall of Famer, 755 home runs. When we look at him, how will his legacy kind of be remembered here moving on?
Yeah, one of the top 5 players that ever played the game, that ever lived. I mean, that's what Hank Aaron is. And to me, home run king. I mean, Barry Bonds did it but his career is shadowed by the PEDs that he admittedly took. And so for Hank Aaron, the home run king. I mean, he passed Babe Ruth, and he'll be remembered. Hall of Fame legend, icon, and home run king. That's to me Hank Aaron.
I want to hypothetically here, Jim, just look at if he played in New York, because we think of Willie Mays and how much bigger he was there. If he played in a market like that, how much big of a story would his career have been?
I don't know if the story would be any bigger, but I think if you want to look at where we are in 2021, with social networking the way it is and the way that big markets like New York are, sure, it would have been a whole different kind of environment. I mean, it would have been more of a rock star kind of following that he would have had. So obviously, different time, different cities, different eras. So no question it would have been incredible. But whoever you think the biggest star is in New York, certainly Hank Aaron would have been that and more.
Speaking of New York, of course, the Twitter world is reacting to the news of losing such a legend there. And Hank Aaron, of course, at the age of 86, Marcus Stroman tweeting moments ago saying, "Rip Henry Lewis." Hank said, "Sad day, thankful for his heroism." I'm curious because obviously he wasn't around to see him play, but he's heard those stories. What type of impact do you think Hank had on this younger generation across the league now?
No, I think he had a huge impact, especially in the African-American community when he was young, being able to accomplish what he was accomplished, the respect that he got everywhere he went. And as Marcus Stroman wrote that, I remember this generation, they go back and watch the videos. They've got all the tapes accessible to them, and they go back and watch those games. But, Hank Aaron opened the doors for so many minorities. And he opened the door not just because he was the best baseball player of that time, which he absolutely was, but again, it's the way he handled himself in the community. It's the way he faced adversity. It's the way he was able to overcome so many issues in his life and yet have the longevity and the perseverance that, it's so difficult to attain.
When you look at the numbers, I know I keep dwelling on it, but the numbers are glaring here, Jim. You mentioned it that, no one would ever reach those numbers again. The impact he's had as a whole, as a community. What did he mean to the community there? Of course, in Atlanta, a lot of individuals there that look at him as this bright, shining star.
Yeah, I mean, it's the player that you look up to, the person you look up to, the success. We all want to be as successful as we can in life. And when you're in Atlanta and you see a Hank Aaron statue, I mean, what the legend, icon, Hall of Famer is. He's the top of the craft of what he did. And that's how he's going to be remembered. There's no doubt about it. I mean, it's the standard that you want as a baseball player and the way he handled himself off the field and the charity work that he did as well.
We look ahead, of course, the Hall of Fame inductions down the path here. You lose one here today. Big picture here. What are we losing here with another legend?
You're losing, truthfully, one of the top players in our game. His memory will be there forever. He can be visited at Cooperstown. And those that haven't gone to Cooperstown, I highly recommend making that effort and making that trip because they obviously give him a tremendous tribute there. But his legend will be forever. There's no doubt in my mind that this is This is one of the greatest players to ever play the game. He'll never be forgotten. And as we all know, when you talk about Babe Ruth and Hank Aaron, they're the only two names for me that you stand when you talk about the greatest home run hitters of all time.
Of course, getting inducted back in 1982. Jim Bowden, appreciate you tapping on the breaking news here. Hank Aaron passed away at the age of 86.
Thank you, Brandon.
News of Hank Aaron's passing has circulated now through social media. Obviously, we saw Marcus Stroman take to Twitter. Others also using the platform to send their respects, talk about the Hall of Famer. Here's another one. Johnny Bench says the hits just keep on coming. They are body blows. My friend Hank Aaron, I miss everything about him, so kind to me. Johnny Bench referencing what we saw in 2020. You're talking about Tom Seaver, Joe Morgan, Phil Niekro, Don Larson, Lou Brock, Whitey Ford, Al Kaline, Bob Gibson, just to name a few. And now we have one here to start 2021. We are going to take a short break, and when we come back, Will Middlebrooks will be joining us to talk about Hank Aaron, who's now passed away, again at the age of 86. If you're just joining us, we have some breaking news. Hall of Famer Hank Aaron has died at the age of 86. Our MLB insider Jim Bowden confirming that news here on Friday. One-time home run king, 57 World Series champion, 25-time All-Star, some of those 2 games in one season, 21 straight there for Henry Aaron, and 3 Gold Gloves. Video of this, of course, 1974, a 1-0 pitch from Dodgers pitcher Al Downing at Fulton County Stadium that broke Babe Ruth's all-time home run record at the time, 715. All right, joining me now is Will Middlebrooks. And Will, what are your thoughts here as we see another Hall of Famer, another legend dying today?
Yeah, this is tough. I mean, it's never easy. We've lost a lot, it feels like, over the past year with the legends of the game. His numbers tell a story of who he was as a player. 25 All-Star games, 755 homers. I mean, over 3,700 hits. And his longevity of his career is even more special. And but I think what he did off the field and what he did to deal with he put up all those numbers dealing with the color barrier and everything that was going on in not within just the game, but within our nation at that time. I think Muhammad Ali had a really good quote saying, Hank Aaron's the only man I idolize more than myself. And I think that should tell people a lot about the man he was.
When you were in the major leagues, what was the sentiment of Hank Aaron at the time? You were a major league ball player. You spent a lot of years, obviously, in Boston, and Red Sox had a great in Ted Williams, and the Braves have one in Hank Aaron. And both of those guys went beyond their regional status and were really national treasures. What were some of those things like?
What's great about legends of our game is most of them make themselves very accessible. All right, so when I was coming up with the Sox, even in the minor league system during spring training, you have Jim Rice, Dwight Evans, Louis Tiant, Kari Yastrzemski, all these guys walking around through the locker rooms, sitting down, talking with you, having lunch with you, watching your BP, and it's really cool at the moment because you're starstruck because those are the legends of the game. But then once I got older and got out of the game now, I really look back and realize how lucky I was to have those guys around, to talk to them, even just to ask them to tell me stories about when they played, because it helped me learn the history of the game. And Hank was always around in Atlanta and with players. He was all over the game, not just with Atlanta, but he spent a lot of time with players of this era. So I think he rubbed off on a lot of guys, and there's a lot of people hurting today with this news.
There are a lot of baseball fans that were lucky enough to watch him play, whether it was during the prime of his career, maybe the end of his career. The fact is they got to see him play. Others grow up watching video of what we just saw, learning about the legend of Hank Aaron because his record stood for so long. But as we just saw from the numbers, just not a one sort of, I don't want to say one-trick pony, but that's the only thing that comes to mind because of the resume that he has, both with the batting, the total base hits, and the RBIs. His game was as complete as those like Mays and others, right? Not?
You're exactly right. A lot of power hitters you think aren't good defenders. We had Gold Gloves as well. He did it all. He had almost 3,800 hits, 3,771 to be exact. I mean, it was over a very long career, which I said is even more impressive because being able to be on the field for that many games, for that many years as you're getting older is really admirable as well. So it's just, this is tough. These are numbers that are probably never going to be touched again in the history of our game. Based off of the longevity of careers and just where we're at and where the game's trending, I don't see any of his records being touched. And
Jim Bowden says that Hank Aaron is his home run king. What do you think about obviously having Barry Bonds there and the record that stood for so long had since been broken? What are your thoughts on that, Will?
Yeah, that's a tough one for me because I view them both as home run kings, honestly. Yes, Hank did it a certain way and Barry did it a different way, we'll say that. But just based off of the era that Barry played in and who he was playing against, you can't completely discredit him for what he did. He was arguably one of the best hitters of all time. But with what Hank Aaron did in his, he wasn't a big guy. He was small in stature. I think that's what is even more impressive to me was that he wasn't a big guy. He doesn't look like a power hitter, yet he had 755 home runs.
Lastly, Will, you got a couple kids. When they get to the age when they start asking about baseball questions and they ask you about Hank Aaron, what are you going to tell them?
That he was one of the best players to ever do it. And I think in 2020 and 2021, where we're at right now, what we're dealing with is with the country, with division and everything we're handling right now. Well, if you rewind to when he was playing, there was a lot of that as well, and even tougher on the African-American community. So what he was able to do, not only as a player, but as a person, I think that's something that should be talked about just as much as his numbers on the baseball field.
World Series champion Will Middlebrooks there with the breaking news. Will, certainly appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Tommy.
The impact, and that's the player perspective of what those legends mean to young players there. So you can only imagine with Hank Aaron what he meant to others. Of course, the home run numbers there, but some of the numbers when you look at the stats, they won't be touched. We'll also mention there the size and what he was able to do at his size. One of the great legends in this one. Interested to see how he's viewed against the other generations now, or the younger generations that haven't had a chance to see them moving forward. See how that pans out.
Yeah, 2021 losing a legend and a Hall of Famer in Hank Aaron, and I just mentioned as well 2020 we saw so many other Hall of Famers due to that generation and the time that they played. With them no longer with us, and again today, Hank Aaron gone at the age of 86. All right, we are going to take another break. When we come back, more CBS Sports, CBS Sports HQ.
destination for the biggest event.
Henry trying to get to the outside, just shoves the defender.
Highlights.
Talk to us about what you saw from Tiger.
Then breaking news, all in one place.
Kings of Europe.
The lead up to March Madness.
Congratulations, coach and team.
And on February 7th, Super Bowl 55.
We'll see you in Tampa for the biggest game of them all.
Your favorite sports anytime, anywhere. The CBS Sports app, streaming now on all your devices.
She has brought us the world.
It is a new day here in this country.
And told America's most important stories.
How does a government shutdown affect national security?
She's opened our eyes.
And what happened to you?
I was sexually assaulted my freshman year.
And our hearts.
Were you scared?
Mm-hmm.
What were you thinking?
About my mom.
Now, she brings us truth and understanding right when we need it most.
Wow, this is pretty spectacular.
The CBS Evening News with Nora O'Donnell.
The CBS Sports app, your destination for the biggest event.
Henry trying to get to the outside, just shoves the defender.
Highlights.
Talk to us about what you saw from Tiger.
Then breaking news, all in one place.
Kings of Europe.
The lead up to March Madness.
Congratulations, coach and team.
And on February 7th, Super Bowl 55.
We'll see you in Tampa for the biggest game of them all.
Your favorite sports anytime, anywhere. The CBS Sports app, streaming now on all your devices.
She has brought us the world.
It is a new day here in this country.
And told America's most important stories.
How does a government shutdown affect national security?
She's opened our eyes.
And what happened to you?
I was sexually assaulted my freshman year.
And our hearts.
Were you scared?
Mm-hmm.
What were you thinking?
About my mom.
Now, she brings us truth and understanding right when we need it most.
Wow, this is pretty spectacular.
The CBS Evening News with Nora O'Donnell.
Breaking news, if you're just joining us here on CBS Sports HQ, Hall of Famer Hank Aaron has passed away at the 86, also known as Henry Lewis. But if you're watching these pictures right now, this was his shining moment over his 23 years in MLB. 1974, April 8th, hammering home. You see it 7:15. That was the record breaker, the long-standing record by Babe Ruth. But over his career, he had 755. When you think of Hank Aaron, he was a legend not only on the field but off the field. Of course, players reacting. Former player David Ortiz saying a legend on and off the ball field. The best to ever do it. R.I.P. Mr. Hank Aaron, hashtag number 44. Justin Turner as well. Gibson, Ford, Brock, Seaver, Gallen, Morgan. Others, of course, naming all the Hall of Famers, of course, that we've lost over this great time, saying we lost some of the greatest to ever do it this year. Tommy Lasorda is going to have a hell of a roster to manage up there, hashtag RIP Legends. And, of course, our own David Sampson, the host of Nothing Personal, reacting to this news. Henry Aaron is and will always be the home run king. The hatred and prejudice that he encountered were and are shameful. He did it the right way. I'm lucky to have spent time with him and just listened, always listened. Thank you, Mr. Aaron. Thank you. Of course, we'll keep you updated on this news right here on CBS Sports HQ. Hank Aaron passing away at the age of 86.
If you're just joining us here on CBS Sports HQ, we have some sad news to pass along. Hall of Famer Hank Aaron has died at the age of 86. Our front office insider Jim Bowden confirming that news. Henry Aaron was the one-time home run king, 21 straight All-Star game appearances. Some years they played twice, so officially 25-time All-Star, 1957 World Series champion, 3-time Gold Glove winner, and then of course that moment there, 1974 home run number 715, a 1-0 pitch there from Dodgers Al Downing at County Stadium, breaking Babe Ruth's all-time home run record, which lasted roughly 40 years till Barry Bonds later passed Hammer and Hank on the all-time list. 23 seasons with the then Milwaukee Braves, going over Atlanta, finishing back in Milwaukee for a couple seasons there. Still #1 all-time in RBIs, inducted to the Hall of Fame in 1982. Still also, in addition to being the RBI king, the total base king as well. So there you go. Ended up with 755, and I mentioned Barry Bonds out there in San Francisco, passing him, and Bonds as well as a 73 home run single season record for him. But a lot of people still consider Hammer and Hank the home run king. Social media has gotten word of the passing of Hank Aaron, and MLB pitcher Marcus Stroman talking about Hank Aaron. Rest in peace, Henry Louis Hank Aaron. Sad, sad day. Thankful for your heroism. Of course, what he meant to the game of baseball at that particular time. By the way, also, before he started his career with the Braves, did play briefly in the Negro Leagues and then minor leagues before making his major league debut at 20 years old. David Ortiz, a legend in his own right, saying a legend on and off the ball field, the best to ever do it. R.I.P. Mr. Hank Aaron, #44. Justin Turner, World Series champion, saying Gibson, Ford, Brock, Seaver, K-Line, Morgan, Necro, Lasorda, Sutton, and now Hammer and Hank. We've lost some of the greatest to ever do it this year. Tommy Lasorda is going to have a hell of a roster to manage up there. R.I.P. legends. All right, we are going to take another break here, or actually here, giving it to our co-host, Amanda Guerra, talking about the life of Hank Aaron.
Henry Louis Aaron was born February 5th, 1934 in Mobile, Alabama. Inspired by his hero, Jackie Robinson, Hank took up baseball at an early age. He remarkably had his first Major League Baseball tryout at the age of 15. After a brief career in the Negro Leagues, Hank made it to the show shortly thereafter in 1954 with the Milwaukee Braves. If there was a theme to his career, it was consistent greatness. He made a record 25 All-Star appearances over the course of his career, won a World Series and a National League MVP in 1957. But his crowning achievement as a player was breaking the all-time home run record previously set by Babe Ruth. He encountered racism and death threats in the years before, but also received an outpouring of public support at the same time. On April 8, 1974, Aaron hit record-breaking home run 715 off Dodgers pitcher Al Downing, and it was Vin Scully behind the mic for the famous call.
Buckner goes back to the fence, it is gone.
Aaron would finish his career with 755 home runs, a record for 31 years, until it was surpassed by Barry Bonds in 2007. In his first year of eligibility, Aaron was elected to the Baseball Hall of Fame in 1982. A fierce competitor on the field, but all class outside of it. He truly changed the game forever.
Another high-profile former baseball player reacting to the news, and it is another big Brave. Chipper Jones saying, I can't imagine what Hank Aaron went through in his lifetime. Had every right to be angry or militant, but never was. He spread his grace on everything and everyone he came in contact with. The epitome of class and integrity. Rest in peace, Henry Aaron, #Hammer and Hank. All right, we are now going to take a break, and we'll have much more CBS Sports HQ coming up.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.